All right, today on the show, we're joined by Casey Rodriguez, a IFBB bikini coach, personal trainer, and posing coach who helps athletes build strength, confidence, presence on and off the stage. Please welcome Casey. Casey, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. First off, I want to thank you for joining me on the show today.
Absolutely.
Now, your coaching goes far beyond physical. Let's start with the beginning. Tell us about you and your life and how did you get started into coaching and bodybuilding?
So I've been an athlete my entire life. I started at the young age of doing cheerleading and track and cross country um, from third grade all the way to my senior year of high school. And then I got pregnant with my daughter at a very young age at 18 and had her at 19 and used my background of fitness to get back into shape. And then we moved to Yuma, Arizona, and I was pregnant with our son, who at the time I was 20 and had him at 21. And so again, I used my fitness background to helped me get back into shape and had found a local gym here, an MMA gym. And I started teaching classes, group exercise classes. And I started with cardio kickboxing, and then I started teaching other variations of classes like boot camp classes and ab classes, strength and conditioning classes. And then we had some females here in the community that had kind of explored the bodybuilding industry, and I had already been following like Muscle and Fitness Hers and um, what was there? There was Fitness RX, all these magazines, because back then social media wasn't very big. It was everything was in magazines. So I was following these athletes in magazines, and I was like, I wanted to do that one day. And in 2019, or it was 2018, I had a kind of rock bottom moment. And I decided that I was going to, take my fitness to the next level and use bodybuilding as hold myself accountable to my health and fitness goals. And so I pursued that 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. And I had about 13 shows under my belt, and I had what had worked with four coaches, different approaches, and we didn't have anyone here local that was a coach. Or at least a knowledgeable, experienced coach, and had a lot of people reaching out to me wanting my guidance. And so I decided to, as of August 1st of 2022, I decided to announce that I was going to start offering online coaching.
Nice.
And so, and shortly after that, about 30 days later, I turned pro. So, in my mind, for the longest time, I had the mentality I needed to be a pro to be a coach. But after listening to numerous podcasts myself throughout my journey, and hours of cardio, a lot of other athletes were saying you don't need to be a pro to be a coach. If you have the knowledge,
Right.
you have the experience, people are reaching out to you for your guidance, then do it.
That's
So
it.
it was
Yeah.
crazy that I pulled the trigger, and then literally 30 days later I turned pro. So
Right.
um I believe everything that is meant for you is going to happen, in God's timing. So
Right.
it
Now,
just
now
happened.
of course, it doesn't hurt turning pro. It helps with, with your
Yes.
clientele, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Now,
it
now,
does,
now, when you say you had that rock bottom moment, what was that about? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I was 30, and I had just turned 30, and I just in my 20s, I was drinking a lot, partying. I was living the lifestyle. I always worked out every single day, 5, 6 days a week. I pretty much ate pretty good, but I wasn't disciplined and consistent. And I had a huge Dirty 30 birthday party, and it was like it was like a beer themed. It was Big Blue Van. It was like a,
Yeah.
a local brewery here in Arizona that my husband had, did all the decorations, him and a few of my girlfriends. And I just, had, um, been living a lifestyle, but not 100%. And what was holding me back was the alcohol, from reaching my health and fitness goals of being a, bodybuilder. And I always had really nice arms, really nice legs, but I always had a gut. Like I always had a stomach, and I was never had that six pack abs I had always wanted. And it was what was hindering me was the alcohol. And I had a we had a local bodybuilding show in that September of 2018, and I was supposed to be performing cardio kickboxing that day. And I was also supposed to be like expediting the bodybuilding show. And I had gone out and drank the night before heavily. And so bad that I was so like I had alcohol poisoning, and I
Mm,
still showed up the next day to that bodybuilding show and did my performance and helped backstage. But after that day, I decided, I was like, that's it, you're done.
yeah.
I was like, I that was in September of 2018. I hired my first bodybuilding coach October 1st of 2018. So literally, I think within 2 weeks I hired my first coach. And didn't I can't say I have never drank again, but I if I do, I've had, my first coach would use like a glass of wine to like in the peaking process of show day to like kind of dry you out. So I did have a glass of wine then. I've had, enjoyed a glass of wine post show, but I've never exceeded like one or two glasses of wine anymore. Never to the point where I'm drunk. Like I now have will drink, sometimes socially. And like I said, just one or two and don't exceed that. And if it were up to me, I probably, it'd probably be best, and because alcoholism does run in my family, I probably, it'd be best to just not even ever drink again,
Yeah.
but that was my rock bottom moment, and happened to have that, that bodybuilding show the next day, our local one, kind of was the eye-opening experience for me to like kind of get my stuff together and just pull the trigger and do what I've always wanted to do.
Well,
So
I'm super proud of you for that. Super proud of you
thank
because
you.
I was the same way at some point. I was drinking heavily, and then I got
Mhm.
back in the gym. I'm not in competition shape, but uh,
Yeah.
but yeah. Now, if someone comes to you and says, "Listen, I have this gut," you talked about having that alcohol gut. Um, what was it that you did to get rid of your gut?
It was cutting out the drinking and then really tracking my macros consistently in my fitness pal. I've had my fitness pal downloaded to my phone since 2010, but haven't been consistent with tracking macros in it until the last 7 years that I've been competing in bodybuilding. So the consistency of tracking my food, every single day. Even now with all the experience and knowledge that I have, I still track every single day. Like my food is tracked for today, all year round, 365 days out of the year. There's not a day that goes by that I don't track my food. And so that consistency has really led me to the results that I currently have.
Nice, nice. Now, if someone comes to you and says, "Listen, I'm totally out of shape. I'm just not built the way I want to be built." And let's say they're slightly overweight, and they come to you for coaching and advice. And uh, what is the first step that you guys go through?
So the first thing I do is get them scheduled for a consultation call, and then when they schedule their consultation call, I email them a form with detailed questions, and they need to submit that to me prior to their scheduled consultation call, and that way I can review all of that information. And it's asking questions like, what are your goals, like short term and long term? Any health conditions, like any injuries in the past, their current regimen, when it comes to training, strength training, and cardio, and nutrition. And then I review all of that, and then I ask them the questions that I have based off of their consultation form. Um, and then um, I always start with the 5 healthy daily habits, and that is um, getting 7+ hours of sleep,
Mhm.
giving them a protein goal, giving them a water goal, giving them a step goal, and tracking their macros. Those are my 5 first daily habits that I give all of my clients, to help them start reaching their health and fitness goals. And then we start adding on to those.
Right. Now, what does being a Bible coach mean to you?
Oh, well, I just um I just in the last year just kind of um just started, developing my relationship with Jesus again.
Mhm.
I kind of during in my 20s kind of stepped away from the church and from my relationship with the Lord. And I grew up with a grandfather that was a pastor, and we went to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. I was, saved and baptized at a very young age, probably at an age that I didn't really know what I was committing to.
Right.
Spent every summer going to church camps. So that was my life for a long time. And then when I became a young adult and a young parent, and the my husband, he was a little confused himself when it comes to religion, because he came from a parents that one was Catholic, one was Jehovah Witness,
Right.
and so he had his own views and opinions on religion. And so for many years, we kind of didn't go to church, didn't do anything religious. And over the last few years, we kind of started trying different churches, and my daughter happened to find a church that she enjoys going to. And
Mm.
one day I told her, I was like, hey, I'll go to church with you. And started going to church with her. And it was perfect timing, because shortly after that, we had some hard times in our family. We had the death of my mother-in-law, and then
Mm.
my mom had a kind of freak accident and end up becoming an amputee last year.
Wow.
So it was kind of almost like, again, God's timing. It was
Right.
perfect timing that I had came back to his home, and reignited that relationship with him, because it was like almost like he knew I was going to need him because a lot of things happened shortly
Absolutely.
after that. And
Absolutely. He
so
always knows, right? He always knows.
yes.
Right on time.
Yeah, it was right on time. It was perfect timing. And so since then, like, I've had a few clients that have join the church that I attend. And, I try not to mix things, with my professional life and my relationship with the Lord. But there is sometimes where my those girls will in their check-ins be like, God is good. And I say, yes, he is, or, just things like that. Or I am a part of a walking club, and when someone maybe mentions, like, because there we have a lot of winter visitors here right now, and some of them are not part of a church, and I will, if I hear that they are in looking for one, I'll invite them to our church. So I just again wait for that timing, that perfect timing,
Right.
when I hear key words, and then I will share um, my own relationship with the Lord, and then also like our church and stuff. But
Right.
I do try to I don't want to because religion was pushed on me as a kid, I don't want to push that on anybody else. So I kind of wait for someone to give, basically give me that invitation to have that conversation with them before I, say anything.
That's a beautiful thing. I love that. I love that. Now, how does this shape the way you mentor your clients?
You know, I would say I since going to church regularly every week, it has, I feel like, made me a better coach, wife, mother, athlete. You know, having going to Sunday service just kind of like gives me like refreshes me and gets me like ready for the week. I actually do client check-ins on Sundays. So I get up, I make breakfast for everybody, and then I go to church, and then I come home and eat another meal, go do my workout, and then I come home and I sit here in my office and do client check-ins. And I have noticed a difference in my approach to my clients. I feel like I'm a little bit more forgiving sometimes because I was a little bit, I mean, I am a very I kind of the word would be like tough love kind of coach.
Yeah,
Like I because I have live the lifestyle too. So I do tell people a lot of times I don't feel sorry for you sometimes, you know what I
right.
mean? Because I go through the same things. Like I have that no excuse mentality, like I'm
Right.
a wife, a mother, an athlete too. And I have, we have 8 cats, 2 dogs. Like I've got all the excuses in the world too, but
Yeah.
I find a way to make it happen. And it's like if you really want something, whether it's just to be healthy and fit or to step on a bodybuilding stage, you'll do whatever it takes
Just do it,
to,
right? Just do
yeah.
it. Just get out
But
there
I
and
would
do it.
say that going to church, every Sunday does help me. Because God is always forgiving. He doesn't
Absolutely.
expect us to be perfect. So I don't expect my clients to be perfect. So I do feel like I do tend to be a little bit more understanding since attending church regularly, just
Right.
because knowing that he's always forgiving us and opening up his arms, to us when
Absolutely.
anytime we do anything, that might not be right, like I gotta, be the same. I feel like,
Right.
not everyone's perfect. I'm not perfect,
Right.
so
And it always helps
mistakes.
to get your week going. You go to church, you get your
Yes.
that that reset. You know what I mean? That
Yes.
mental reset. It always seems to get your week going. And if you veer off course, which we all do mentally, we veer off course and think whatever we think, crazy thoughts, and we come back and we think, God, you know what? Am I supposed to be whatever you're praying about? And it sets you straight again. Now, when we're talking about bodybuilding and stuff like that, I want to talk about posing. Why is posing such a critical part of competition?
Oh man, I tell my athletes, posing will make or break you. It will separate you first from second. Like you can have the best physique on stage, but if you don't know how to present it, you're gonna be last. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is that important. Like, it's unfortunate because sometimes you do have the best physique on stage, but they're in last call outs, but it's because they didn't know how to present it. Posing is designed to show off all your hard work. And I tell my athletes is just as important as the training, the nutrition, the cardio. Like just you have to practice your posing every day, just like you practice, just like you eat healthy every day, just like you train every day, just like you do cardio every day. Like it's just as important. Like, if you don't practice, it shows, and
Mm,
also like when you don't practice, that it hinders your confidence because you didn't practice.
right.
So that will also, come to life on stage is if, a lot of times, especially first time athletes, they're so nervous. Um, when they do their first bodybuilding competition, that if they usually black out. They don't see nothing, they don't hear nothing, they don't remember anything. But if they've been practicing 7 days a week for the 20-30 minutes a day that I've asked of them, they're going to flow through the routine
Yeah.
whether they black out or not, because they've been practicing, and it's mind muscle connection. Just like we have mind muscle connection with the muscle groups that we're training when we're in the gym, it's the same thing with our posing. Like you create that mind muscle connection with your poses. And so if you haven't been practicing, when you have that blackout moment on stage,
Oh yeah,
you're
you're
just
done.
you're just gonna freeze and you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to perform. And this is a performance. Like when you're on that stage, you're performing not only to the judges, but to the crowd, to the,
Right.
to your family and friends. You're showing off all your hard work. I mean, we're spending, 6, 9, 12 months, for this goal for 20 seconds. We get 20, amateur athletes only get 20 seconds on stage, and we
Mm.
spend thousands of dollars to do these
That's
shows.
all. That's all they get is 20 seconds.
Yes, you
It
get
seems longer than
20
that.
seconds. As a
Wow.
pro, you get 45 seconds to a minute. But as an amateur, you only have 20 seconds. So it's like I tell them, and you're spending thousands of dollars to do this show for 20 seconds on stage for months of hard work. You better make it worth it. You know what I mean? Like you better nail that posing, because you've worked so
Absolutely.
hard, like, and you've spent so much money. Like, why wouldn't you want to present the very best athlete on stage that day?
Yeah. Wow. I thought it was longer
So,
than that. Now, what
no.
mistakes do athletes commonly make when it comes to posing on stage?
Not smiling. Probably, I would say, like, especially that's something that a lot of amateur athletes, like, they're so focused on the poses. And I tell them, when they're practicing their routine and they're sending me their weekly posing video, they're not, not only do you need to practice your poses, but you also need to practice smiling, because
Right.
then it doesn't look natural on stage because you haven't been practicing. So when it comes to stage day and they finally do smile, they're like,
Yeah.
it's not genuine, it's not, it's not natural. So I would say, one of the biggest thing mistakes that, amateur athletes make is not practicing their posing, and then not practicing smiling when they're posing,
Right.
so um and that's why I always have my athletes do at least two shows a year, and within 2 to 4 weeks of each other, because that first show, nothing ever goes right. There's always a posing error. Your hair, makeup, tan might not have, gone as planned. Your physique, we might not have, if it's a first time competitor, and we're learning your physique, and then your peak might not have been perfect. So doing another show in 2 to 4 weeks will set you up for ending your season with success, because even if it's not a first place, you could at least move up in placing, and then you also ended your season with better posing, better hair, makeup, tan, like you, all these little details, you can improve within 2 to 4 weeks of your first show.
Mm.
And I had an athlete this year that, in June, she did a show, didn't do so well, came in, anywhere from top 3 to top 5 in each of her classes. And then 2 weeks later, did another show and won every one of her classes and won the overall. So again, you make a huge improvement within a 2 to 4 week time frame, just
Right.
by these little details, that people don't realize how important they are when it comes to your placing.
Right. Now, finally, what advice would you give someone who is kind of wanting to get into bodybuilding, like I said earlier, and overweight and just struggling with it, ups and downs? What advice would you give to that person?
Oh, I just had someone reach out to me last night, and the first thing I said is hire yourself a good coach. I mean, you do need to research and make sure you find yourself a knowledgeable, experienced coach. And that's what I told her. Like, let's get on a call, and I will explain to you how to get started. And usually, with first-time competitors, especially if they're overweight and they need to peel back some of those layers, is I put them through a 90-day phase first, like a lifestyle phase first, to make sure that they're able to be consistent with those 5 daily habits first. Because I tell those potential bodybuilders, like, if you can't be consistent with those 5 daily healthy habits, when cardio is low and food is high, what makes me think that when cardio gets high and food gets low, you're able to be consistent with them.
Right.
So it's like you got to prove to me and to yourself that you're ready for bodybuilding prep, because it's not for the weak.
Right.
As it is very um, not only physically taxing, but it's mentally taxing, and then
It
it's
is.
also, yeah, and
It is.
it's also, I give a bodybuilding budget, because people don't realize how expensive bodybuilding is. Like, we're this is a hobby. This isn't a you don't get paid to do bodybuilding until you become a pro. And then even then, you only get paid if you come top 3 or top 5 in a bodybuilding show. You're paying to do these shows. They're not paying you to do them.
Right.
So they're very expensive. So that's one of the first things I give to those people interested in bodybuilding, is my bodybuilding budget. And it gives you the cost of the coaching and the suits and the heels
Right.
and the
What's the
hair, the makeup,
typical?
the tan, the hotels, the registration. Like,
Mhm.
there's so much that goes into doing a bodybuilding show that people don't realize. They just see the end result of the bodybuilding pictures
Right.
on Instagram. They don't see everything that goes into it behind the scenes.
Uh, Thank you for joining me on the show. You're watching the Power Hour. It's my good friend Casey Rodriguez.
Thank you so much.